But let's get started like we normally do. Short period of bell meditation. So wherever you are behind your avatar, please get into a nice meditation posture. And as I ring the Ching bell, the idea, focus on the sound of the bell. Really get that deep listening going. Really get that concentration going so we can all absorb some Dharma today. You'll probably get distracted, happens to all of us. When it does, I just want you to gently remind yourself and go back to focusing on the sound of the bell. Then there'll be a short pause. I'll do the 3 recitations, and then on with the talk for today. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the teacher. I go for refuge to the Dharma, the teaching. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the taught. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I have taken refuge in the Buddha. I have taken refuge in the Dharma. I have taken refuge in the Sangha. 3 pure precepts. Cease to do harm. Do only good. Do good for others. Bodhisattva vow. However innumerable all beings are, I vow to lead them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, I vow to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, I vow to follow it completely. Swaha. So once again, welcome everybody. It's Monday, it's the Deer Park, it's the Buddha Center. We're here. Excuse me. So the subject for today is realizing intentional body mind. That's what we'll talk about today. So to start out with this, we have to train ourselves differently if we don't like the choices that we tend to make. So, if you're making choices and you keep thinking, man, I don't know, this just doesn't seem like the right choice. Well, it's up to us to train ourselves differently, right? Again, nobody else can do it for us. So it may begin with a want to change, what is perceived as choices with unwholesome consequences, but a state of wanting won't get us there. The gathering of knowledge, it's not enough. We have to teach our body minds new ways to behave. And it takes rigorous self-honesty to determine what changes are needed, and then it takes courage to make the efforts necessary to succeed in making those changes. And it requires also a higher level of mindfulness than is common for most human beings, and appropriate intent directed toward wholesome personal transformation. It takes the realization of the body and mind being so intimately connected that one cannot change one without changes to the other. And it takes the realization of the body mind. We work with a body mind, not a body and a mind. So again, to remind you, when I say body mind, that's the two words together, no dash, no space, no nothing. Body mind. So we're going to talk about realizing intentional body mind. So where your body and your mind are doing things with the best of intent. Well, we got to begin with the mind-body debate of Western philosophy. This particular debate has been around since, let's just call it, the dawn of philosophical thought. The issue has been a topic of philosophical discussions for thousands of years, back to Plato, Aristotle, the Buddha, lots of others. Now, Western philosophers believed the mind and the body were phenomena of very different kinds, while in the East, these same things were experienced as integral to each other. The arising of modern medical and scientific methods of study has the potential to add scientific proof to what has been experientially verified by Buddhist practitioners for over 2,500 years. A couple of decades from now, this will likely fall away as a debate. In time, this idea of the mind-body will be recognized as a misunderstanding and a mislabeling of a unique human expression, the holism of body-mind. Right? The interconnectedness, interdependence of what for some is seen as two separate entities, but for a Buddhist, we see them as one. Hastening that transition from mind-body to body-mind is Dr. David Shaner. He's a practicing Soto Zen Buddhist. He's a scholar of Eastern philosophy. He's a professor at Furman University in North Carolina. He began using the term body-mind in 1979 as it has come to be understood in Buddhist thought. Particularly in contemporary Soto Zen, this idea of body-mind is important in achieving wholesome personal transformation. A mature Buddhist practice requires the realization of body-mind as an inseparable biopsychosocial phenomenon, meaning it's psychological, it's physical, and it's social. It brings all those together in this idea of body-mind. And this is so that a holistic training of a person can be achieved. One must come to the realization that what changes the mind and body brings about changes of the body and mind. Changing how we think changes how we act. And changing how we act changes how we think. Man, I've said that many times here, right? That one of our goals is we change the way we think, so we change the way we act, but we also work to change the way we act because that changes the way we think. So we can come at these practices and these attempts, if you will, to make changes by understanding that if we can change our actions easier, then let's change our actions, and we know that's going to change how we think. Western philosophies, they speak of body, mind, and at times soul or spirit as making up a person. Each are viewed as separate aspects of the human condition. In Buddhism, the person is viewed as being made up of 5 aggregates that constitute the individual and are the paths to how one is and how one can be. Now, I've taken the liberty of adding another aggregate to the list that I'm going to talk about here in a moment. I call it unconscious mind, arising from a contemporary understanding of the body-mind connection. So bringing one last kind of more contemporary idea into this. But if we talk about just the aggregates from a Buddhist view, the first of the aggregates is form. In Sanskrit, this is known as rupa. And this is the body. This is our material existence. So this is the thing, that we can touch and poke and burn and make love with. Right? That's the body. And it's known as form again, or rupa. Then there's primary consciousness. This is, in Sanskrit, it's vijnana. And this is effective mindfulness and awareness that arise from primary consciousness and gives a critical role in Buddhist practice. It's awareness. It's the experience gotten in the presence of consciousness that comes together with sense organs and the object affecting them to produce a sense experience or an awareness. So we can go back to the example of an orange. Right? When we put our thumbnail through an orange, the smell, the sound, our mouth starts to water. So the object is the orange that affects. The sense organs are the ones that gather, right? The sense information, the sensory information. And then it's that primary consciousness that puts it all together and says, oh, wow, an orange. I want a bite. So this is the consciousness that we're constantly working with, hopefully working with. The third of the aggregates is perception. In Sanskrit, this is samja. So those 6 sensory organs, smell, touch, taste, sight, hearing, and then consciousness, which Buddhism adds in as the 6th. These are our paths to direct experience. Perception is the act of attaching a name to a phenomenon, right? You perceive it, you say, oh, it is A. And how something is perceived directly relates to how we respond to it. The next one is feeling. In Sanskrit, this is Vedana. And in the context of the skandhas, this refers to how one divides experience into categories like, ooh, that was pleasant, or ooh, I didn't like that at all. That hurt or was weird. Or maybe neutral, like, I don't know, I didn't feel a thing. So when we talk about the aggregates of feeling, this is what we're talking about. And then there's intent or compositional factors. In Sanskrit, this is samskara, not samsara, but samskara. And these are the general thoughts that drift through the mind. Think of this more like, you're going through your day and you have thoughts that just kind of drift through like, oh, what might I do when I get off of work? Or I wonder if later today the boss is going to give me some new thing to do. Or there's just our general thoughts that drift around through our head. They compose the day for us, if you will. And then unconscious mind. In Sanskrit, this is alya vijnana. This is the storehouse of spontaneous thought and action. This is where the stuff goes when we've done it so many times that it's become spontaneous, that we just do it because it has become for us the right thing to do. Now, for an athlete, we could look at this as muscle memory. For others, the unconscious mind holds the dispositions and habits that have been found to be effective in moment-to-moment life. But it doesn't matter whether the consequences of those actions are good or bad. It's just those are our go-to ways of acting and thinking. The unconscious doesn't label. It just reacts. Its connection to the body lies in the physical responses it causes. Like the athlete. For an athlete, it's things like hitting and running and jumping and throwing without having to consciously direct each action. And for a Buddhist, it is responding in ways appropriate to the promotion of wholesome transformation and human flourishing. But no matter how we look at it, in either case, it is a body-mind connection. When we talk about unconscious mind from a Buddhist perspective, it is acting with loving kindness without even thinking about it. That arises from the unconscious mind. Recognizing that aggregates are codependent factors in human existence brought the arising of a term, namarupa. And this particular word has been alternately translated as mind/matter or name/form and mentality/physicality. All seems to point to body mind, though. But nama is Sanskrit for mental phenomena, and rupa is the physical. So together, they describe the reality of the five aggregates, and subsequently, they describe the reality of the body mind. I mean, that's what it's naming. Mind matter, body mind. Name and form, body mind. Mentality, physicality, body mind. The mind and body are inexorably linked in the causal chain of dependent co-arising. In the Dhammapada, there's a quote. The quote is this: "Sound is not a thing that dwells inside the conch shell and comes out from time to time. But due to both, the conch shell and the man that blows it, sound comes to arise. Just so, due to the presence of vitality, heat, and consciousness, this body may execute the acts of going, standing, sitting, and lying down, and the five sense organs of the mind may perform their various functions." Unquote. So again, pointing directly to body mind. Have you experienced a situation in which you reacted without conscious thought? Well, we all have. You may not remember it, but we've all done that. We do it every day. When we get up in the morning, it doesn't take conscious thought to get out of bed. Well, most of the time anyway. It depends on what the night before was like. It doesn't take conscious mind even for us to get in a car and drive. It's just become an unconscious activity, as dangerous as sometimes we let unconscious activities be. But your body-mind reacts unconsciously to experience when self-awareness is absent. All of our experiences make it to the unconscious level eventually. For example, the experience of listening to a classical work like Holt's The Planets can result in an unconscious smile whenever the tune is heard. And this is just like negative experiences, like maybe you don't like Holt's The Planets when it plays. Well, it can cause avoidance and maybe even fear. This means that the conscious, self-aware body-mind needs to work harder. And this is the conscious mind that we work on when we say sit in Zazen, for example. In many people, experiences are dominated more by the conscious than by the, are dominated more by the unconscious more than the conscious. And in some ways that can be a good thing depending on what has been built up into the unconscious mind. What are those thoughts and activities, those habits and dispositions that have become unconscious? Are they wholesome or are they mostly unwholesome? Anything you experience roots itself in your body mind. And this is why it's so important to focus on wholesome experiences and to surround ourselves with positive, affirming people. This is why you'll hear me say when we talk about certain practices, like, for example, our habits and dispositions, that I will tell you, remember, you've got more good than bad. Because we want to focus on those wholesome experiences. We want to focus on the wholesome things first, because that gives us the vitality and sometimes the body-mind strength that we need to continue with our practice. What the body-mind experiences, the body learns, and the reverse is true too. So what the body experiences, the mind learns. It is the modern philosophical debate today between mind and body. We have reached a consensus that there is no border between the two. It is body-mind, a totally interdependent unit that mirrors the interdependence of the universe around us. In the future, there will be some engaged Dharma Sangha long after me that's sitting around in a circle, and somebody's going to bring up, can you believe they used to think body-mind was two different things and they kept trying to keep them separated from each other? Chances are we'll be sitting around talking about that. Wasn't that silly? An effective meditation practice is driven by codependent arising in the body-mind, or causal conditioning, if you will. During meditation, our physiology is fundamentally altered, and this includes the structure of the cells in our brain. But as well, the manner in which our brain, or if you will, mind, is used. Now, I put brain and mind together there because that's how we commonly think of it. But actually, we don't really know where the mind is, right? The mind may be just like any phenomena like feelings and emotions. But it is more a matter of awareness cultivation, which includes an awareness and acceptance of what we find out about ourselves. But there is also a fundamentally enhanced ability to experience the information that is gathered by our senses. Meditation reprograms our brain and alters how we use it. We begin to reprogram our body-mind habits by just sitting and becoming the observer. We observe our own inclinations. The process of learning to observe them opens windows of opportunity through which we can make the changes needed. We gain the necessary distance between our emotional attachments to our habits and the rational clarity needed to decide to do something differently. One of Chan Buddhism's most important contributions is its cultivation of a spiritually mature body. And this is necessarily an inseparability between the knowledge of Chan teachings and its skillful applications. So the Chan teachings, mind and belief, if you will. And its skillful applications is body and behavior. When we talk about body-mind, we are referring to the bilateral interconnectedness of belief and behavior, or mind and body. We come to know through experience that whatever changes that occur in one will cause changes in the other. That is why the recognition that what happens to the body always affects the mind, and that the reverse is true, will lead to the realization that in order to pursue the noble path, we must achieve the appropriate view of body-mind. So whether it's something we're thinking about or acting about, we want intent behind that, right? We want wholesome intent directed toward the alleviation of suffering and, of course, the enhancement of human flourishing, happiness, health, and harmony. But like we've been doing lately, I want to take this and touch on what we're going through right now. this coronavirus pandemic. What does intentional body mind? How can we look at it in the light of what's going on right now? You should have certain intents with your body mind right now. 3 in particular that I can think of. You want to wash your hands often, right? That's a practice of an intentional body mind. You want to keep that physical distancing when you're out, right? That's another thing of the intentional body mind. Mary went to the grocery store yesterday, and she was explaining to me how she felt like a magnet with opposite poles, because every time she felt she was getting too near someone, even if she wasn't really being aware of how close she was in the grocery store, that she realized that she was already backing away to put the distance. Right? This has not been going on that long, and already the intent of her body mind, her unconscious body mind, is to maintain that space even when she's not directly thinking about it. And the other intentional practice that we want to do with the body mind right now is to take care of ourselves, right? Take care of our families, take care of those close to us. So right now, realizing an intentional body mind can be really important, because that intentional body mind will also be what says, are you not feeling well? Maybe you should check your temperature. Did you forget your mask? Maybe you should go back and get it. So right now, this idea of realizing intentional body mind is even more important from a health and safety point. So again, during this time of pandemic, our Buddhist practice can both not only become stronger through our practice, but our practice of Buddhism can also make it better for others. And that's really what we want to shoot for right now, right?